here knows who I am?
No.
Does anybody that doesn't know who I am at all? Right. Fair enough.
Horror stories, I think.
Police reports.
I am Bad Jon. I am the evil overlord of Vague, and once a year, at least in this location, I deliver this lecture. Somewhere around March or April, I give you a lecture on how to be a better role player. Generally in time for the Nationals, and generally with the focus on how to fucking win. Right? But right now, it's more about how to become a GM, how to learn a system, and if you're already a GM, how to basically some tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years on how to do it better. Point of it is, at some point you're going to disagree with me. This is good. It means you've actually thought about it. Right? Not everything I say is actually going to be true, it's just what I think is true and what has worked for me. My trousers are weighing down because I've got too much shit in my pockets. I'm going to give my apologies straight away, I am not well. So if at some point I collapse and die, this time it's not going to be for a laugh or for audience effect. It's because I'm really fucking ill. Right? I'll keep going for as long as I can, and we'll see how it goes, alright? Do we have any questions before we begin?
You focused on any specific genres, or was it just a general?
No. This is straight across the board.
Yeah,
It's one of the reasons why I'll never refer to a Games Master as a DM, because DM is for Dungeon Master, and that's Dungeons and Dragons. You'll find me focusing on Deadlands a lot, because it's my favourite game. Right? But almost everything I say is a generic thing for right across the board. D&D, sci-fi, fantasy, action and adventure, horror, the lot. Right? You should be able to pick something out of it. The whole point of it is these are easily transferable skills and knowledge bases. You with me? The correct answer there is
Yes, John.
right. Who hasn't been to this lecture before? This question is to those people and those people only. Rule 1. Who out of those people can tell me what Rule 1 is?
Make sure it's fun.
Life comes first.
Good lesson. I like it. No. Somewhere in every rulebook, and sometimes you really have to fucking troll hard to find it. It's even in the Vampire the Masquerade 2nd edition rulebook, which is focused primarily on angst. I swear to God, if you read the intro to Vampire the Masquerade, it's 4 pages long. It mentions the word angst 7 times. The word fun, not at all. Right? Rule 1. Somewhere in every rulebook it will say, if something in this book does not work, change it. Right? Every book gives you, as the GM, the option to change, adapt, or completely ignore anything within that game. How you do it is up to your own common sense, but I have almost never, in any game of Deadlands, used the winded rules. Wounded, yes. Winded, no. Can't be asked. Takes too much time. Takes too much away from it. If any rule in this book does not work, change it. Which essentially translates to my game, my rules. Can everybody read that?
Yes, John.
In which case, the 4 words to remember are...
My game,
my rules.
Correct! Rule 1. It's your fucking game. Doesn't matter what anybody else says. It matters if everybody ditches it in first 10 minutes. You might need to reevaluate it. But it's still your game. How you run it is up to you. That is Rule 1. It is the most important rule in the book. Some people that write the books don't realise this because they think their system's the best in the world ever. But it's your game, your rules. What's the point?
My rules.
Thank you. Now, what's the first thing you do when you're picking up a new system? Anyone?
Read the book.
Thank you. Read the fucking book. All the way through. Right? If you're specifically going to run a campaign that doesn't actually involve magic at any point, you can flick past those bits. Still actually give them a cursory reading, but read the fucking book and understand the book. Understanding the system so that you know it, right? When you're starting off, it's allowable for you to have the book there and it's like, I want to do this. Okay, let me just check the book. I want to surf on a crocodile down Main Street when I've flooded it. I'm not sure there's a rule for that, but let me just check. Yep, there we go. D9.
That's what we roll, master.
Learn the system. Right? The most complicated bit of any system that I have ever found is always the combat rules. Right? I'm skipping quite quickly through this because I'm out of breath already. The combat system is almost always the most complicated bit. It takes the most time, and it's always a bit of a drag to get through. You want to learn that, you want to practice it. You want to run it through a few times yourself with characters that you yourself have created, and we'll get to character creation in a minute. Right now, we're talking about learning the fucking rules. Right? Got some water in it, right. Every system, yeah.
Sorry, as a tip for my own games, I've noticed that there are some systems that are really, really complex, and I found it very handy to write a cheat sheet. And I managed to squeeze, most important stuff in one page, so I could easily get to where I need to be. If I need that combat quickly, I've got it already there, without having to flick through.
Welcome to that.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Right. For your combat system, it's essentially, there's copyright violation, which means I'm not allowed to, when I'm publishing a book, I'm not allowed to use the system you published earlier or the system you published earlier. So I've got to build a whole new system. Right? Rather than filing off the serial numbers and doing something that everybody kind of recognises already. It's like, I've got this great new way of doing things, and it involves rolling 3d6 plus 12, divided by 14, and then you start off with your initiative, and it's like, thanks, just roll it up. So every system's going to be new, every system's going to be different, right? You need to get this off as down pat as you can, and combat is the most complicated bit of it. There is, however, an easy way of getting through this. Presuming you've already created your characters, which we'll sort out in a bit, right? Create a few characters. Right? So it might be useful at this point to have some of your characters that are adept at combat. Right? But I use the closed box system. Right? You do this at home, on your own, with your pen and paper and dice. Right? And you create yourself a sealed chamber. Not hermetically sealed, your characters will die of oxygen starvation fairly quickly, but you create yourself a sealed chamber. And you run through combat with two of your characters. Point A, point B. Right? He's smaller with a bigger head. Pick one of them. That person will do the shooting, the other person will stand there and take it. You run the combat through until A kills B dead. Just run it through your head. Run it through on paper. Make a note of the numbers. Right? Just do it through once. Straight away, what you've got getting the hang of there. If you run it through once and you've still not got it quite, run through twice, 3 times, just this. Right? A just shoots B. Right? This way, you have straight away worked out the initiative. Shooting or striking or sword play or whatever to hit, damage, and death. Wham! Done. You know what you're doing now. Spellcasting, same thing. Swordplay, same thing. Right? One person will stand there and take it until they are dead. Then you press the reset button. You have them both shooting at each other, standing stock still, 10 yards apart, blasting away. Right? You'll get the randomness from your dice rolls, but you'll work out, again, initiative to hit, damage, and death. Then we get the fun part, and here's the bit that fucks up in 90% of the books you'll ever read. Dodge. Movement. Cover. Right? Take it step by step. Once you've worked out the initiative, you know whose turn it is. Right? So you'll know. Populate the place with a few high walls and some blocks, some cover. Have them moving. Right? You'll straight away be able to figure out, I have no idea how person A is going to get out of the fucking way when person B shoots at them. Sometimes it's a hold action, sometimes it's a counter action, sometimes it's, you've got no fucking chance, you haven't got enough points in that. But you need to know what that is. And dodge is one of those that you will make up on the fly all the fucking time because it's so badly written in so many books. That's why we leave that till then. Dodge. Modifiers come into this. Distance away from each other. Right? What sorts of box, panel, armour plating. For the purposes of your first exercise, assume they're naked or as good as. Right? Start adding armour later. Right? But eventually, you'll cover armour with a U.
That's proper English.
Indeed. Right? Although those of you that think aluminium should be spelled aluminium, you're wrong. Aluminum is actually the correct spelling.
Ooh, that's true. The guy who invented it, discovered it, changed the name.
It's in
The person that
guy who
rediscovered
discovered it,
or invented, or whatever you want to classify it as aluminum, wanted to call it aluminum. Everybody else went, you should have an IUM at the end. So,
But didn't we do?
We agreed to change
yeah,
it.
Oh, the
we
colour
agreed
was
with
it.
America because we changed sulfur is now an F, but aluminium is pronounced aluminium. We did like a packy thing with America to get the spellings the same across the
It's the scientific.
armour's spelt with a U.
And so's colour.
My game, my rules.
My game, my rules.
Not
Right.
P-I-T-S.
Anyone else want to add in any extra complications to your combat that can't be covered by this?
Lighting.
Supernatural abilities, right?
It comes under shooting. Right, if I shoot you with a gun, it's the same as shooting you with a fireball, it's just a different
No, I mean any
set
sort
of
of, any
dice.
sort of weird defences such as fortitude or magic defences.
Armour. Right? It all rolls around into this.
Setting people on fire is usually insanely complicated in games.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what your players will do a lot.
Right?
Yes.
Grappling.
Sorry?
Grappling.
Ah! Fun stuff. Hand-to-hand combat. Oh god. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's fairly similar to swordplay and melee combat, but you run it through again. If you want, I mean, you mix it up as much as you need to. Somebody with a shotgun at 20 yards against somebody with a power fist, who can die before he gets there and lands one punch. Right? You work that out. If you've got that, literally, if you've got that on a bit of paper, making a note of it as you go, get a second piece of paper next to it. Simply get rid of all of the numbers that you've just written down here and what you've created for yourself. So nice little flowchart that you have next to your rule books when you're actually playing. Right. Some games actually skip half of this. Some games, I've noticed, don't even have an initiative roll. It's a, fuck it, do what you want. Right? Well, you've got yourself a nice little flowchart to stick by the side of your rule books, and you're off. Anyone got a problem with this or any other additional suggestions they want to add to the closed box system?
What about environmental hazards in combat? Things like where
Rain,
they're fighting,
fall,
fighting over
snow,
large pits or things like that.
Modifiers.
Get the rules.
Modifiers come into play like that at the start before you actually have your combat there. Fog, mist, rain, lava flow, you'll know about already. So if you're stood in lava flow, then it's a -28 2-hit percentile dice. Or something. Right? Yeah, so you're on fire.
Yeah.
Right? But things like weather effects are universal across the board, so you could actually negate that straight away and say the bad guys have got the same mischance as you want. If you want to say everything's at -4 because it's foggy as fuck, go with it. Right? But it's up to you. Environmental effects, they'll come into play before you should be doing initiative. So I'll even stick that at the top if you really want. And nobody can read that at all. Right. Anyone else? Any questions? Someone give me a time check, please.
10 to
10 to 3. Right, getting on. Right. And you'll notice I say the word right in an authoritative way very often. Tools of the trade. What do you have in your bag of tricks? If you are a GM and you're turning up for a game, what do you have? What are you carrying in your bag?
Dice, pencil, paper.
We will start with what I first heard. Source books. Right? Is this obvious to everybody?
Yeah.
Right? Is anyone going to argue the concept that they do not need the source books with them?
I'd say the PDF is a bloody terrible idea. It's a nightmare trying to deal with it.
Source books. Try and always have at least the main core rule book with you. Somewhere handy. 2 or 3 around the table is great for when you're doing character creation, but when you're actually playing the game, have a book. Next, hand in the air. Who's got one more? Tool of the trade.
Pencil case.
Pencil case. Or we'll simplify that.
Stuff.
Pens. Pens, pencils, whatever. Next!
Nice.
Dice! I love my dice. My dice bag is too heavy for me to have brought with me today. Right?
You got it back then?
Oh,
You
yeah.
went messing a while ago.
Yeah, but it was only in my house somewhere. My dice bag is that big, right? It is a solidly packed old leatherette camera case, right? And it is chock full. It has at least 10 of each different sorts of regular standard dice, and then a really weird mad selection of other such shite. There is even a dice in there for instant dungeon generation. If you can find them, they're about £2. They're a D12, and you roll it, and it just gives you the shape of a dungeon room. Right? They're wonderful things. Next.
Paper.
Paper.
Your notes.
Paper. Paper is useful for the creation of maps. Now we'll go with map generations on that one as well. Right, for handing round little secret notes between the GM and the players between themselves and everybody else. Right, just have a notepad, preferably a blank one. It's not that hard to find. Next.
The plot.
The plot. Right.
I lost the game.
As much as we invade take the piss, have a plot, have some notes. We'll cover exactly how in-depth your plot should be later, but have something there so that you can refer back to. Anything else?
Character sheets.
Character sheets, there's the one.
Don't ever forget.
Way of killable.
Copies.
Who here has been a GM, stick your hand up, and has let their players go home with their character sheets,
Once and once only.
and has never seen that character sheet ever again? I, as a GM, will let the players take whatever copies of their character sheets as they like home with them, but the actual stack of character sheets stays with me. Fuck you all. If you can't remember what your character sheet was rolling on a horse riding check, what are you doing at home? Keep your character sheets with your notes, with the game books, with the rest of it. Fuck it. At times I will have a bag near the door. That's my GM bag. It's there for the weekly game. I'll pick it up and take it with me when I go, and I put it back there when I get home at night. That's it. Next, anything else?
Players.
In my GM bag.
You need a larger than usual bag for that.
It's a different bag.
At least a phone to call them and say, where the fuck are you?
I will stick next to the plot the maps.
Yeah.
Any pre-generated maps you happen to have.
Those Chessex maps, they're all like freshly wiped up all the roll out.
They're amazing.
Amazing things.
They are
If you're a GM, there we go.
It's too big though.
There is one more detail on there that I generally carry, especially if I'm running an action-orientated session.
Beer.
Nearly.
Beer.
Jelly babies.
Jelly babies! I always love a bag of jelly babies with me when I'm gaming. You stick out your battle map, you put your player map. No, I shouldn't be sitting on those because they've collapsed, don't they?
Yeah.
You stick out your battle map, you put on all of your locations, you write this, that, and the other on, you have your cardboard stand-ups or your character models or whatever for the players. And the villains are all played by jelly babies. Pick this one up at the Nationals, it's great. You kill a villain, you get to eat him. It really motivates the players to kill those villains. It's a wonderful stuff. Nice. There's a set of us that do the Nationals every year that took part in this one game. And all of us now, when we GM, and it's like, jelly babies, must rush and dance at shop, get some before we play. If you go to the Nationals and you see somebody pulling out a bag of jelly babies, they've either been to this lecture or they're one of us. Right, there you go. That's your stack. The heaviest thing in it is your source books. Please don't take the source books out because it makes a lighter bag. Take some of them out. Take the main core book out. Doesn't weigh that much with the exception of your dice bag. Right? My dice bag's great. It's got D24s, D36, D7s. Day of the week. Go on.
If you please don't read them on source books, is that alright? Is that generally useful?
Yeah. But it's up to them.
I'm talking about, let's say,
Players good.
let's say you grabbed a...
Deadlands games is the main, the first edition, which I purchased straight off because I fucking love the thing, had a main core rulebook. And then they had a second main core rulebook. Second edition, they brought out the Player's Guide and the Marshal's Guide. And each of those had sections on whether you were, there's no holes in my trousers, good, and whether you were a hexslinger, a magic user, or a lawman, or a blessed, or a shaman, or the rest of it. But each of those sections, because they loved them so much and the players wanted to get into it so much, then had a much more expanded source book just for them. So my Deadlands shelf at home is about that fucking big, and that's before we get onto the miniatures collections. Right? But it does mean that I'll bring them along for character creation. If I know somebody's going to want to play a hexslinger, a magic user, I'll bring out the Hex Arcana and the Hex Arcana 2 or Hexes and Hexes and stuff. And they can flick through the entirety of the book at that point. But when it comes down to it, as useful as those books have been, the bits that are only relevant would be the pages that consist of the spells that they're using. So I'd either make a note of those spells or photocopy that page and stick it in with the main rulebook, so I don't need that source book anymore. Alright? You with me so far? Any questions?
I was just going to make a notation there. As a GM, generally have the rule that no player is allowed to turn up with more books than me. D&D. If you give players free reign, they will turn up with a stack of books that big, with one ability from each of them.
Good for them. I hope their back is worse than mine. I'm seeing an osteopath on Tuesday. She's a fucking miracle worker. I came home last Tuesday from the osteopath. I mean, she worked on my back for a while. I've been in agony for a while. I got home on Tuesday, and by the time I'd driven home, I felt like I was high on crack. Sitting there going, fuck! What shall I do now? Shall I reorganise the entire house? Shall I vacuum the cats in order? No, I'll play some Xbox. But I feel great about it, and it took me 3 hours to realise what I actually felt was a complete lack of pain. Right? It's amazing. I don't know, where did we get onto osteopathy? Books, yeah, fuck them. They want to bring that many books? Great, they're sitting next to me.
Well, the reason why I do it is because I find it slows the game down if people spend the entirety of the game trawling through tons of source books. The less they've got at their disposal, the less trawling there is.
Well, that's, again, find out what it is in each of the books that they're really desperate to see. Photocopy that page. From a 400-page source book, they want 2 paragraphs.
Yeah.
There you go, bang, piece of paper.
I also find that there is distraction for players. They will sit and read them.
Yeah.
We'll come to that later.
It makes me want to beat them outside.
Okay. Right. Again, I'm going to have to write. Let's see. Building up my little map of the board. We'll switch over to this side again. Can anyone tell me the 7 levels of people that there are in the world? And I'm talking about in a role-playing game.
Oh, well.
Anybody got even a slight idea of what the fuck I'm talking about?
Types of players.
No.
Players, characters.
Mooks, mooks.
There we go. We're in the right area. What's a mook?
A mook is someone who doesn't have a name, and you either ignore them or kill them.
General,
There's a very broad range to that.
general low level.
Shall we just stick in the one that people generally sort of miss? The extras. Strange you go for that one as primary.
People you kill.
Right.
The innocent bystanders.
The nameless people who you either ignore or kill. Right.
Okay, this must be some role-playing training.
Right. I'll actually stop us here at this point. I personally run my games like a film. Right? I like my games cinematic. I don't mean that they have to be Michael fucking Bay, although those games are fucking awesome when I run them. I'm talking about I run it cinematically. I try and flesh out as much of the details as possible. And one of the details that is missed so often in so many games are the extras. Right? When you walk into the bar, you see a bar, a barman, and a dark, mysterious stranger in the corner with a big neon light above his head saying, "This is your contact, go talk to him." It's a pretty suspicious bar, if you ask me. And I don't mean you walk into a suspicious bar, I mean, what the fuck is going on here? Right? If you're walking down the street, there will be people, there will be teams, there will be a stagecoach rustling by, a dog sitting in the middle of the street going, what moment weren't me? Oh, I didn't set that fire. Right? People walking up and down. You walk into the tavern, there's a few playing the piano, there's 3 dribbly old bastards in the corner playing cards. There's the barman, there's 4 whores up on the balcony above you just going, hello. Right, so there's people all over the place. And a dark, mysterious stranger in the corner.
Yeah.
The extras. Don't forget them. They're there. If you don't have extras, then the entire population of the world will be 28,432 to cover 7 continents. You'll find your contact easily enough, but it won't be very realistic or immersive. Right, we've got the extras. They are the people in the middle. Somebody give me another classification of person in a role-playing game.
Villain.
Thank you. Number 1. The villain. Which means that below the villain we have the
Underbosses. Lieutenants.
henchman. Below that we have the
Order.
People who die in interesting ways.
They're the people who die.
They're the people you kill. Not these. What, the chain gun, city street.
Oh,
Some of them were bad.
You play all the games with me?
Don't want to.
Maybe you want to.
You've got so far the highest body count in my D&D game.
They're not dead yet.
Oh.
Raising them doesn't count.
Just drowning the whole planet.
Okay. 3 more categories. Points for any.
Red shirts?
What?
Red shirts, like the grunts but on your side.
Nearly.
The man in the corner.
Player characters.
Arsonists is also not really putting on.
Heroes, yeah. Cleansing fire to the world.
People with cloud and shadowy corners and ends.
Recurring NPCs?
The NPCs. Right, the people with names that you either ignore or kill. Leaving us with this category in the middle.
Contacts.
No, they come under NPCs.
Allies.
GM
Sidekicks.
And allies in general.
Deputy player characters. People that are partially controlled by the player, partially by the GM. Right? People that are your sidekick sort of role. Right? Yes, your red shirts if you want. But a DPC. If needs be, that's the player on the party that the GM controls, so when the GM switches over to being a player, they control them. Right? Has anybody not heard DPC before? Right, that's what that is. It is a deputizable player character or some such formula of.
Useful in Cthulhu for when you've managed to get your character killed for the 8th time.
Your backup player, your backup character, who's just along for the ride until you die.
It also come in handy if somebody else wants to drop in on one session.
Sorry?
It also come in handy if somebody wants to drop in on one session to see what it's like.
There's any number of reasons to have your DPCs.
Fodder.
And here's the fun part of it. People on that list can change around what category they're in all the time. Now, you don't have to understand the list. You don't even have to follow it. You don't have to pay any attention to it. But it's useful to know so that you can classify it so you know where people are. Right. I will give you one brief example. Jeremiah Storm. He's my favourite bad guy. It's my Xbox handle. And he's a guy that has turned up in 90% of my Deadlands role-playing games. I love the bastard. He's great. He turned up as the villain in the main game. And then he died. What a shame. But then, when players don't turn up to a session, if I've got 4 out of 5 players, rather than running the main game, because we need the 5th to carry on the main story, when we've got 4 out of the 5, I'll run you a flashback, right? So we'll pick 1 out of those 4 players and we'll do a story from your past, right? Which means that everybody else gets to play the same character with a different name, right? Same stats, same all the rest of it. But it does mean that you're the only person that's got the will not die during this adventure card. So everybody, I mean, there were times when it was like, kill me, I'll fling myself on the bomb, we're getting near time now, yay! The most glorious deaths we could manage. And in about 90% of the flashbacks, there'd be a villain. And it'd be Jeremiah Storm. And he'd die at the end of the flashback. And so they would then sort of, this guy's died about, I don't know how many times, we can't figure out the timeline as to who met him first or who killed him or who didn't. So when on the next adventure his name was announced during a shootout tournament, people are going, but he's wanted by the law in 15 states. Not this one. So he ended up being the villain for God knows how many adventures, but then he switched to being an NPC. Because we can't arrest him here. And then he was a DPC, and then he died.
Again.
It's a bit of history to the Jeremiah Storm. He turned up later on as an NPC in somebody else's adventure. As in, I ran an online thing, and they didn't know any of the history of him, but I brought him back. Eddie Catflap turned up as a DPC one time during one adventure in Pretenders. Eddie Catflap, Pretenders by the way, right, after we ran Vampire the Masquerade as a LARP game, that ended, so we started a new one that featured a whole range of monsters. You could be a troll or a werewolf or an elf or a halfling or a modern day Manchester halfling. Demons, elementals, anything you want. And Eddie Catflap turned up as a villain of the week to basically die. Who was an 18-year-old goon that had watched too much Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Stuck on a headband, grabbed 2 guns from fuck only knows where, steamed into Monster Party Central and went, right you fuckers, I'm having the lot of you. Munch. Except it didn't quite happen like that. About a minute before somebody went, fuck it, munch. A particular demon came up to him and said, what's your name? What's your real name? Munch. The next month, Eddie Catflap turned up. Nobody knew from where because he did munch. Every time he died, he added a bit more combat bonus to his XP, so he got a bit more powerful. We actually had a little running thing going on when we were running Pretenders, where on the character sheet you had intro music. What music typifies your character? So by about 1.5 years in, we had a stereo system in the corner. As soon as somebody heard the phrase Ballroom Blitz start playing on that, everybody started legging it. We're talking trolls and werewolves and vampires and elementals going, fuck, he's on his way! And he could take them as well. He moved from a DPC that I invented on the spur of the fucking moment, and to an NPC, to a major fucking villain. And then he became a player character. Because I wanted to get in on the game. You can switch these people around. Right? One of the flaws that I've got in my game, and there are a few rules that I personally stick, house rules for me personally. And here's where you could argue the so. If I throw in a character that I know is going to die straight away in a game, then I'll give them a name you recognise. Jack Black won a poker tournament that Jeremiah Storm robbed and he shot him in the face. Richard Hammond was strapped to dynamite and thrown onto a bonfire. Eddie Catflap is the name of a character played by Adrian Edmondson in Filthy Rich and Catflap. Right? He was supposed to turn up for 10 minutes and get fucking munched. Except it didn't happen like that. He kept coming back. So it's just a running gag, same as the severed horse's head. I don't know why there's always a severed horse's head in any Deadlands game I run. It just happens. Somebody threw a fucking rock at somebody and hit the crotch of a villain from about 200 yards. He had no bullets, he had no shooting skills, he had fuck all. He picked up a rock and threw it at a villain. The hit location was crotch. The villain was on horseback. The damage stat kept adding because it hit the top of the dice, so he rolled it again and added on, and it kept on adding. The damage stat to kill a horse is somewhere in the region of 50. He rolled 3d6 and managed 78. With a single rock at 200 yards distance, the horse's head fell off from one rock. This is before we'd even had the running gag of the severed horse's head. He severed a... The villain's sitting there. Oh, right.
I was improvising.
Yes. You improvised well with a rock. Did it ever work ever again?
I was willing to try.
No.
Right. When you're creating your characters, create a character that you want to play. Right? I'm talking as a GM. Create a character that you like, that you can get inside the head of. Fill it out fully. Your advantages, your disadvantages, the stats, the health, the background, the lot, everything that you would want to see an actual player fill out on their player sheet. Fill it all out. Get it all down. Because what you've created there are your NPCs and your henchmen. Right? Characters with names, with backgrounds. Characters that you know what they're going to do when they start off. Go with it. These are the people that you love, these are the people that you'll be seeing over and over again. Change the names. Bring them back. Bring them back with the same name. Freak them out. Right? Grunts. I stat barely. I'll give them an initiative stat. I'll give them a combat rating. I'll give them some weapons. That's all you need. And when I've got 4 ninjas in a line, all with the same weapons, do I need 4 character sheets for this? No. I need to keep track of 4 different levels of damage. That's it. One little fucking A4 post-it note will do that. DPCs come up as and when. Extras you don't need to know fuck all about. Grunts, we've covered that. Extras! This is the fun bit. You know how I said about the tavern? Everybody remember the tavern? Anybody tell me who was in the tavern?
Three old guys.
Yes, 3 old guys in the corner playing cards. Or as I like to call them, the Dribble Brothers. Whenever you see an oldie-timey worldy saloon with the old swinging doors, it's always 3 old fuckers in the corner playing cards. We need to find out information. Who's going to know this shit? The old fuckers said, no, but I'm still going to go talk to him, says the player. All right. So straight away I have to give the Dribble Brothers, like, names. Clancy, Elmer and Kyle, I think it was. So they straight away shifted from extras to NPCs. Didn't have very much stats, but they weren't needing that. So he sits there and he's trying to get information out of them, but he's a gambler, man. They're playing poker, I'll play poker. They're playing poker for nickels and dimes, 5 and 10 cents a piece. I've got $50 in my pocket. Not any fucking more, you know. They're playing that every day, all day, every day, and they have been for 50 fucking years. You're nothing but a child going, free lollies to them. Right? And when they still ignore the dark, mysterious stranger in the corner, they'll go to the barman. You need to have some stock characters in your head. The barman. He's a big burly chap with a nice big bushy beard. He's called Sam. He's wiping a glass. He only has whiskey and sarsaparilla. Nobody knows what sarsaparilla is, but they'll still go with it. What have you got? Whiskey and sarsaparilla. Right. I'll have a shot of red eye. Fuck off to the pub bar. Right? Fuck off to the posh pub. It's Sam. Everybody knows Sam. I've got a little dice in my bag that's got a happy face and a sad face and an angry face on it. Roll the dice. He's a friendly chap today. Right? So your demeanour of the barman easily worked out. I'll just make the shit up as you go along. I've got a dice. It helps immeasurably. Thing is, next town down the line, we're going to the tavern. Yeah, there's one playing a piano, there's 3 old fuckers in the corner playing cards, there's some whores around, there's a bar. I'll go to the barman. He's a big bearded, he's a big, like, burly bloke with a huge shock of black hair. And does he look at all? Yes, he's changed his wig. It's the same guy. He's called Ted this time. Leave it alone. It's the same barman. He's got a different wig on. Leave him alone. Stock characters, they're great. Right? Sometimes you need to invent them on the spot, but it doesn't mean you have to throw them away again at the end of the day. My friend Shep went to go put his horse in the livery stable. A livery stable is your multi-storey car park for horses in town. Right? You pay some money, your horse gets looked after. All right. Rather than, I'll go put my horse in the livery stable and come back to the bar. No! I want to talk to the stabler. Okay. It's a woman. I shall chat up that she's a huge woman. She's a huge woman with more facial hair than you. I'll chat up. Oh, she's called Bertha and she wants it. Hey, that's what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Play a character, can't live with him, can't kill him.
So, in his effort to try and get laid, essentially, I created the nastiest look, right? For those of you that might be too young, think the phrase, Bertha, lovely Bertha. The big fucking machine thing, think that on 2 legs. Right? I've created a stock character there. She's always ready to go. Anytime I need a livery, hand, stabler, whatever, Bertha comes straight back. Hello! Anyone up for a fuck? And if Shep's around, yes, they are. This is the man that decided that after he did so well in combat, he got mugged, stripped naked and thrown into a dungeon, and so had to do the dungeon naked for the best part of it. He found that he was rolling so well that any time combat came beyond that point, the first thing he did was strip. I fight better naked. It's logic of a sort, right? But these, they'll switch around all the time. And it really doesn't matter what game you create them in, right? Starbase Adventures number 10,078. I shall bring my massive star cruiser into dock. I shall see the woman about the docking fines. Hello. How you doing? You can transfer all these characters around, and yes, if you do find the CD spacebar in the corner, there may well be the Dribble brothers in the corner playing space poker. For the equivalent of nickels and dimes. Will someone give me a time check?
It's 20 past 3.
Still got plenty of time. Right. Alright. I'll give you one to think about, because I'm actually running a bit much at the minute. So before the interval, I'll leave that there for you, for everybody taking notes.
The students, you don't expect them to take notes, do you?
They expect to pass.
Because here we're getting on with how to actually create and run your game. As a GM, those three factors come into play. What you allow the players. Right? Plot, freedom, and fun. That's what you're trying to carry over. Those of you that think that the most important bit of your game is the story, raise your hand. What? Those of which that think that the freedom of the players is the most important detail, raise your hand. Two. And those of you that think that the most important detail of any game is the fun. Raise your hand.
That goes to work game.
Fuck fun, I run vampire.
In this game,
Any other opinion on this matter?
All.
That's what I go with. If you have a game that's just plot, you're just running on rails. Right? And as much fun as it might be, it's just like you're just railroading it straight down here. I have played games where the only option is the option that the GM has got written down on his pad. And you don't feel like you might as well be reading a fucking choose your own adventure book, but without the choose. Freedom, you have a game that's purely freedom. You're in so much shit to begin with, but you've got no idea what's going to happen, what's going to go anywhere.
that's a game with Bad Jon in it.
Alright? Fun, yes. Fun is an important factor in any game. Right? But you need the other two to balance it out. I tried once upon a time to figure out what the ranking of these three, and I realised that they're all the same thing. You need to have all three of them together for your game to work spot on. Right? Even your game of Vampire the Masquerade with its 17 references to angst still has to have fun in it somewhere. Even if it's fun by lines of black eyeliner and so on. I'm looking at you, but yes. Go on.
The symbolism with fun, you know, it kind of spreads out to, you know, there's fun, there's kind of fun. The fun in paranoia is different to the fun in don't rest your head or something like that. Fun can be, oh shit, that was awesome, or it can be, you know, having a laugh.
Well, I mean,
There is a distinct difference between the fun and dicking about.
yes.
Yeah, there is.
Running around with the actual dildo-shaped nerve-ending destroyer in Starship Thingy and just clocking everybody with it because you're pissed, that was fun for some. Didn't help the plot very much, though. Did it, John?
I'm an asshole player, though.
That you are. And later on today, we will cover asshole players. Right? Yes, you fall into at least 3 of the categories. Have done.
I don't usually turn up pissed anymore.
No, you get pissed during the game.
Right, I'm sorry guys, I'm actually fading fast, so I need just 2 minutes to have a break of the bag. So if we call it 10 minutes from here, which gives us a time check of
25 to
25 to 3.
Be back.
back for 25 to 4.
It's 25 past 3 now.
Right, okay. In which case, 20 to 4, back